Janma yasya yato niviyad itaratas chartesva vigyaswarat Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye Muyanti Atsurayaha Tejo Varimadam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mesha Damna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dimahi O my Lord, Sri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O my Lord, Sri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O all-pervading personality of Godhead.
O all-pervading personality of Godhead.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because he is the absolute truth.
And the primeval cause of all causes.
And the primeval cause of all causes.
Of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes.
Of the creation, sustenance, destruction of the manifested universes.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him.
And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him.
It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji.
It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart
The
of
original
Brahmaji.
living being.
The original living being.
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
As one is bewildered by the illusory representations
As one is bewildered by the illusory representations
of water seen on fire or land seen on water.
Water seen on fire, land seen on water.
Only because of him do the material universes,
Only because of him do the material universe
temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature,
temporarily manifested by the reaction of the three modes of nature,
appear factual although they are unreal.
appear factual, although they are.
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna,
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna,
who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode,
who is eternally existent in the transcendental,
which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world.
which is forever free from the illusory representation of the material world.
Dharma projita kaitrovotra. I'm sorry, I meditate upon him for he is the absolute truth. Dharma projita kaitrovotra. Paramo nirmatsaranam satam. Vedyam vastavam atro vastu. Shivadam tapatrayon mugunam. Srimad Bhagvate Mahamani Krite. Kim Vapurer Ishwaraha. Sadyo Hridi Avarudyate Tra. Kriti Bihi Sususabhistakshanat. Completely reject all religious activities which are materially motivated. This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Nigama kalpataror kalitam phalam sukha mukad amrita dravya samyutam pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam muhur aho raska bhuvi bhavukaha. O expert and thoughtful man, relish Srimad Bhagvatam, the mature fruit of the desire to Vedic literature. It emanated from the lips of Shri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful. Although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Shinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Idyantaksto hi Bhadrani Vidunoti Srihitsatam. To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures, or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita, is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna,
hears about Krishna.
Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart,
Lord Krishna is dwelling within everyone's heart.
acts as a best wishing friend,
Acts as the best wishing
and
friend.
purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him.
And purifies the body constantly engages in hearing.
Nasta presu abhadresu
Nasta presha bhavesu.
nityam bhagavata sevaya
Nityam bhagavata seva.
bhagavati uttamasloke
Bhagavati uttamasloke.
bhaktir bhavati naistike.
Bhakti bhavati naistike.
In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge.
In this way, the devotee naturally develops dormant transcendental.
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam.
and from the devotees,
And from the
he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
he becomes fixed in devotional service.
Tadarajastamo bhava
Tarajastamo bhava.
chita etaranabhidam.
Kamalobhadaya.
I'm sorry. Kamalobhadayaschaye
Kamalobhadaya.
cheta etaranabhidam.
Hidayataranabhidam.
Stitvam sattve prasiddhati.
Sattve prasad.
By development of devotional service,
By development of devotional service.
one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance,
One becomes free from the modes of passion and ignorance.
and thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
And thus the material lust and avarice are diminished.
Evam prasana manaso
Evam prasana manasa.
bhagavad bhakti yogataha
Bhagavad bhakti yoga.
bhagavad tattva vijnanam
Bhagavad tattva.
mukta sangasya jayate.
Mukta sangasya.
When these impurities are wiped away,
When these impurities are wiped
the
away,
candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness,
candidate remains steady in the position of
becomes enlivened by devotional service,
becomes enlivened with the good
and understands the science of God perfectly.
and understands the science of God perfectly.
Vidyate hridaya grantis,
Vidyate hridaya grantis.
siddhyante sarvasamsaya,
Siddhyante sarvasam.
siyante chasya karmani, drishta evatmanishvare. Thus Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection
That's the bhakti yoga service the heart of material.
and enables one to come at once to the stage of samsayam samagram,
Enables to come at once to this some
understanding of the supreme absolute truth, personality of God.
understanding the supreme absolute truth of personality of God.
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness. Huh? Can one understand? Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness can one understand the science of Krishna.
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or his voice in Krishna consciousness can one understand the science of Krishna.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 3, verses 2 to 7. Brahmavarchasa kamastu yajita brahmanapatim
Jeta brahmana patim.
indram indriya kamastu
Indram indriya kamastu.
prajakama prajapatim
Prajakama prajapatim.
devim mayam tushi kamas
Devimayam tushikamas.
tejas kamo vibhavasum
Tejas kamo vibhavasum.
vaso kamo vasun rudran
Vasu kamo vasun rudan.
virya kamo taviryavan
Virya kamo haviryavan.
anadya kamastvaditum
Anadya kama svaditim.
svarga kamo dite sutan
Svarga kamo ditesudam.
vishwan devam raja kama
Vishwandevan rajakama.
sadhyan samsadako visham
Sadyam samsadhako visham.
ayus kamo srino devo
Ayuskamo srinodevo.
pusti kama ilam yajet
Pushti kama ilam yajet.
pratishta kama purusho
Vishta kama purusho.
rodasi lokamat mataro
Dashilokamataro.
rupa bikamo gandharvam
Rupavikamo gandharvam.
stri kamo upsara urvasim
Vikamo sara urvasim.
adipatya kama sarvesam
Adipatya kama sadesham.
yajita paramestinam
Jita parameshtidam.
yagyam yajit yashas kama
Yagyam yajet yashaskama.
kosha kama prachetasam
Roshakama parijitasa.
Vidya kamastu girisham dham patyartha umam satim. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. One who desires to be absorbed in the impersonal Brahmajyoti effulgence should worship the master of the Vedas, Lord Brahma, or Brihaspati, the learned priest. One who desires powerful sex should worship the heavenly king Indra. And one who desires good progeny should worship the great progenitors called the Prajapatis. One who desires good fortune should worship Durga Devi, the superintendent of the material world. One desiring to be very powerful should worship fire, and one who aspires only after money should worship the Vasus. One should worship the Rudra incarnation of Lord Shiva if he wants to be a great hero. One who wants a large stock of grains should worship Aditi. One who desires to attain the heavenly planets should worship the sons of Aditi. One who desires a worldly kingdom should worship Vishvadeva. And one who wants to be popular with the general mass of population should worship the Sadhya demigod. One who desires a long span of life should worship the demigods known as Aswini Kumaras. And a person desiring a strongly built body should worship the earth. One who desires stability in his post should worship the horizon and the earth combined. One who desires to be beautiful should worship the beautiful residents of the Gandharva planet. And one who desires a good wife should worship the Apsaras and the Urvasi society girls of the heavenly kingdom. One who desires domination over others should worship Lord Brahma, the head of the universe. One who desires tangible fame should worship the personality of Godhead. And one who desires a good bank balance should worship the demigod Varuna. If one desires to be a greatly learned man, he should worship Lord Shiva. And if one desires a good marital relation, he should worship the chaste goddess Uma, the wife of Lord Shiva. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. There are different modes of worship for different persons desiring success in particular subjects. The conditioned soul, living within the purview of the material world, cannot be an expert in every type of materially enjoyable asset, but one can have considerable influence over a particular matter by worshipping a particular demigod, as mentioned above. Ravana was made a very powerful man by worshipping Lord Shiva, and he used to offer severed heads to please Lord Shiva. He became so powerful by the grace of Lord Shiva that all the demigods were afraid of him until he at last challenged the personality of Godhead, Sri Ramachandra, and thus ruined himself. In other words, all such persons who aspire after gaining something or all of the material objects of enjoyment, or the gross materialistic persons, are on the whole less intelligent, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 7.20. It is said there that those who are bereft of all good sense, or those whose intelligence is withdrawn by the deluding energy of Maya, aspire to achieve all sorts of material enjoyment in life by pleasing the various demigods, or by advancing in material civilization under the heading of scientific progress. The real problem of life in the material world is to solve the question of birth, death, old age, and disease. No one wants to change his birthright. No one wants to meet death. No one wants to be old or invalid. And no one wants diseases. But these problems are solved neither by the grace of any demigod nor by the so-called advancement of material science. In the Bhagavad Gita, as well as in the Srimad Bhagvatam, such less intelligent persons have been described as devoid of all good sense. Sukadeva Goswami said that out of the 8,400,000 species of living entities, the human form of life is rare and valuable, and out of those rare human beings, those who are conscious of the material problems are rarer still. And the still more rare persons are those who are conscious of the value of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which contains the messages of the Lord and his pure devotees. Death is inevitable for everyone, intelligent or foolish. But Parikshit Maharaj has been addressed by the Goswamis as the Manisi, or the man of highly developed mind, because at the time of death he left all material enjoyment and completely surrendered unto the lotus feet of the Lord by hearing his messages from the right person, Sukadev Goswami. But aspirations for material enjoyment by endeavoring persons are condemned. Such aspirations are something like the intoxication of the degraded human society. Intelligent persons should try to avoid these aspirations and seek instead the permanent life by returning home back to Godhead. Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavane Ki Jai. Gaura Premanande Haribol. Okay, so here we see the problem with worshiping demigods and the absolute benefit of worshiping Krishna. So, obviously, demigod worship is not recommended by Krishna. Why? Because demigods cannot give the ultimate benefit of life. That is, freedom from the entanglement in the material world and eternal life in the spiritual world in the company of Krishna and his pure devotees. They can't give that. They don't have that themselves. You can't give something you don't have. And so, therefore, kamaistaista hitagyana prapadyante nya devaha tam niyamam astaya prakriti niyamam swaya pakritya niyatak swaya. Those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. So that's what this verse is about. It says, if you want this, you worship this demigod. If you want that, you worship that demigod. But when it comes to Krishna, it says, if you want real fame, you worship Krishna. Why did it say that? Because in one discussion in the Mahabharata, who is the most famous person? That's the pure devotee of the Lord. Just like Prabhupada, he's a very famous person, although he was a nobody in India. But because he spread the glories of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagvatam, and spread the glories of Krishna and Vrindavan and Nanda Maharaj and Yasoda Mai and the gopis, he is the most famous person. So it says here, one who desires tangible fame should worship the personality of Godhead. So we should aspire to worship Krishna and not anything else. Today, everyone is worshiping at the altar of sense gratification. And all that does is just creates misery. Because as soon as we engage in sense gratification, it's followed by misery. It's the law of nature to teach us that sense gratification is not worth the trouble. So therefore, there's a very nice verse. Also, in the purport, Kamaistaista Hitagyana, Prabhupada quotes the verse, Akama sarvakamava mokshakama udaradihi tivrena bhakti yogena yajata purusham param. Prabhupada says, less intelligent people, immediate fulfillment of material desires. Generally, such people do not go to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because they are in the lower modes of nature, ignorance and passion, and therefore worship various demigods. Well, we know that. There's so many temples now in the Seattle area worshiping demigods, worshiping less than demigods, so-called incarnations of God, and so forth. That means they are worshiping the modes of passion and ignorance. And there's no way of salvation for such people, because they're ignoring Krishna, or they worship Krishna like a demigod, equal to the others. They're all equal. All the gods are equal. This is Gandhi's nonsense. And people have accepted it wholesale in India. And so if you don't worship demigods, they say, oh, you are not a Hindu. Well, actually, we should get a badge. I am not a Hindu. Right? So they don't have to say that. We let them know I am not a Hindu. Of course, when ISKCON is in trouble, they try to get the help of the Hindus. They say we are a Hindu organization, but actually it's not true. Is Krishna a Hindu? No, he's not a Hindu. Krishna is the god of everyone, and not just Hindus. Is Krishna an Indian? No, he's not Indian. Those are all temporary, false identifications. So, people want immediate fulfillment of their material desires. Generally, such people do not go to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because they are in the lower modes of nature, ignorance and passion, and therefore they worship various demigods. Following the rules and regulations of worship, they are satisfied. The worshippers of demigods are motivated by small desires and do not know how to reach the supreme goal. But a devotee of the Supreme Lord is not misguided, because in Vedic literatures there are recommendations for worshiping different gods for different purposes. That is, a diseased man is recommended to worship the sun. Those who are not devotees of the Lord think that for certain purposes demigods are better than the Supreme Lord. But a pure devotee knows that the Supreme Lord Krishna is the master of all. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adilila 5.142 it is said, Ekale Ishwara Krishna Ara Sabha Britya. Only the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is master, and all others are servants. Therefore, a pure devotee never goes to demigods for satisfaction of his material needs. He depends on the Supreme Lord, and a pure devotee is satisfied with whatever he gives. So is it a fact that people can get rather quick sense gratification by worshipping demigods? Yes, it's a fact. But what they don't understand is that it'll also be accompanied by misery. So that's a law of nature. We've cited that many times, but let's look at it some more. In the 5th chapter, 22nd verse, it says, the more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more he is entrapped by material miseries. There it is. So, therefore, those who are true yogis or learned transcendentalists are not attracted by sense pleasures, which are the causes of continuous material existence. So, two things are happening when we engage in sense gratification. One, we'll continue in the process of birth and death and rebirth. And two, misery will follow. This is the law of nature. So, therefore it says, before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses, including the mind, and check the force of desire and anger, he is well situated and is happy in this world. Yeah, when you get angry, there's always going to be a reaction. And when you have uncontrollable desires, there's going to be a reaction. But if you can control these things, you tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger, he's well situated and is happy in this world. So this is a formula for happiness in the material world. Prabhupada says, if one wants to make steady progress on the path to self-realization, he must try to control the forces of the material senses. There are forces of talk, forces of anger, forces of mind, forces of the stomach, forces of the genitals, and forces of the tongue. So these are called Vacha Vegam, Manasakrota Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Udarapasta Vegam. The Vegans are forces, forcing us to be entrapped by Maya and suffer unnecessarily in the material world. One who is able to control the forces of all these different senses and the mind is called Goswami or Swami. Such Goswamis live strictly controlled lives and forego altogether the forces of the senses. Material desires, when unsatiated, generate anger. Now we know why people get angry so quickly over triflings, because they have very strong material desires, and due to the not being able to satisfy those desires, they're dissatisfied and they're quick to get angry. They're quick on the draw, right? Before you know it, someone is screaming at you. It's because they have these unfulfilled, very powerful material desires. So, therefore, one must practice to control them before one gives up this material body. That's the vegans, the urges of the body, the mind, and so forth. One who can do this is understood to be self-realized and is thus happy in the state of self-realization, not happy in the state of self-gratification, but happy in the state of self-realization. It is the duty of the transcendentalist to try strenuously to control desire and anger. Well, anger is destructive. If you want to destroy a relationship, you want to destroy friendship, and all those things, just, get angry often and use harsh language and threaten people, then you lose your good reputation very quickly. So, there's a very nice verse, 4th chapter, 21st verse. Nirasir yatachitatma tyakva sarva parigraha sariram dev kevalam karma kurvan napnoti kilvasam. This verse, 421, is extremely important for education, real education, not nonsense education that people are getting today. And it says, the first word is nirasi. It's a very important word in Sanskrit. It says, nirasi means without desire for the result. In other words, na danam, na janam, na sundaram, kavitam va jagadishikamaye, mama janmani janmanishwari bhavatad bhaktira haituki. I don't want any amount of wealth. I don't want beautiful women. I don't want any number of followers. I don't want liberation. All I want is your service, Krishna, life after life. So, such a man of understanding, that means understanding what? Nirasi, without desire for the result. Acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled, gives up all sense of proprietorship over his possessions. Yeah. Because one realizes that everything I think I possess actually belongs to Krishna. So I should use everything in the service of Krishna. So people like Jeff Bezos, he has such a big yacht that he needs a second yacht to accompany it, because the first yacht is so big. So you see, one thing leads to another thing, and it's all called entanglement, right? It's not because he purchased a yacht that's so big, he has to have a second yacht to help maintain it. So this is crazy, right? What's wrong with a little canoe? The Indians have these canoes. They make them out of wood. They carve them themselves, right? But to make a big yacht like the one he has, it's almost like a gigantic ship. It requires a lot of work, a lot of expenditure. It can cost hundreds of millions of dollars. And he needs a second yacht to maintain the first yacht. So, therefore, Prabhupada says here, Such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled, gives up all sense of proprietorship over his possessions, and acts only for the bare necessities of life. Thus working, he is not affected by sinful reactions. So, Prabhupada says, a Krishna-conscious person does not expect good or bad results in his activities. His mind and intelligence are fully controlled. He knows that because he is part and parcel of the Supreme, the part played by him as a part and parcel of the whole is not his own activity, but is only being done through him by the Supreme. Wow, how many people realize this? See, if we engage in Sankirtan, if we engage in cooking for the Lord, we engage in dressing the Lord, we engage in preaching about the Lord, we engage in remembering the Lord's pastimes. Actually, it's the Lord that's helping us do these things. And when we're engaging in sense gratification and eating nonsense things and talking nonsense, we're under the control of Maya. So either we're going to be controlled by Maya or we're going to be controlled by Krishna. Either Maya is going to dictate to us what to do, or we voluntarily accept Krishna and he'll dictate to us what to do. We have that choice. So a Krishna-conscious person does not expect good or bad results in his activities. His mind and intelligence are fully controlled. He knows that because he is part and parcel of the Supreme, the part played by him as a part and parcel of the whole is not his own activity, but is only being done through him by the Supreme. When the hand moves, it does not move out of its own accord, but by the endeavor of the whole body. A Krishna-conscious person is always dovetailed with the supreme desire, meaning the desire of Krishna, for he has no desire for personal sense gratification. He moves exactly like the part of a machine. As a machine part requires oiling and cleaning for maintenance, so a Krishna-conscious man maintains himself by his work just to remain fit for action in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. He is therefore immune to all the reactions of his endeavors. Like an animal, he has no proprietorship even over his own body. A cruel proprietor of an animal sometimes kills the animal in his possession, yet the animal does not protest, nor does it have any real independence. A Krishna-conscious person, fully engaged in self-realization, has very little time to falsely possess any material object. For maintaining body and soul, he does not require unfair means of accumulating wealth. He does not, therefore, become contaminated by such material sins. He is free from all reactions to his actions. So this Krishna-conscious person. What's interesting is that in the Satya Yuga, people didn't build gigantic buildings made out of stone and rock or steel and iron, whatever. So, therefore, when the archaeologists look for ancient buildings, they don't find them. And what do they find? They find that people were living in simple huts. And the only thing that's remaining from ancient times are temples. They were built to last a very long time, like thousands of years. See, now all the buildings they're building now, they're only built for like 50 or 60 years, maybe 100 years, that's it. They fall apart. And then people's own dwellings previously were built with very simple materials, and they would only last for someone's lifetime. Therefore, when they do these archaeological finds, they don't find much. They just find, simple and things like that, all natural things. And most of those things disappear over time due to degradation. And actually everything is biodegradable, right? So the clay pots and all these other things, unless they're in very special conditions, they'll just merge back into the earth. So this was the lifestyle. Like, I remember when I first went to India, most everything was being served in little clay pots or leaf dishes, right? And there were one use pots and dishes. And so when you finish, you just threw them on the ground, and they just merged with the ground after some time. They're biodegradable. Then came plastic, and now you have a huge problem. Plastic all over the place. It's clogging up rivers, it's clogging up drains, and all kinds of problems. And it's not a healthy thing either. I remember one time we were having, a long time ago in France, and we had one little apartment. We were cooking a feast for Janmashtami, and all of a sudden, and I was trying to chant 64 rounds. And at one point, I started hallucinating, and I felt dizzy, and I was thinking, "Wow, is this the chanting?" And I actually saw Prabhupada's eyes move in his picture, right? And I was thinking, "Oh, what's going on?" And it felt a little funny, very funny. I thought maybe I was choking or something. But actually, it had nothing to do with the chanting. And Prabhupada's eyes didn't really move. There was just a trick of my mind. There was a plastic, cheap, junk Chinese, let's say, bowl. And it was left on the stove. But it wasn't burning, but it was just smoking. And they used to use these plastics that were extremely toxic. Now they're not allowed to do that anymore. But it's extremely toxic, and you can hallucinate by inhaling the smoke. And then when we realized that this thing was smoking, we're inhaling it, we ran out of the little apartment that we're in, and then that illusory state of mind gradually went away. For a minute there, I thought I actually saw Prabhupada's eyes move, and and I was choking, and I didn't know what was happening. Yeah, we were being poisoned by the Chinese. They're expert at poisoning people, right? So, by using these cheap, dangerous plastics and dangerous materials. So we have to learn this principle of life that's explained in this verse 421. And Prabhupada gives a whole lecture on it in Bombay, April 10th, 1974. I'm not going to mention the whole thing. Again, it says, such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled, gives up all sense of proprietorship over his possessions, and acts only for the bare necessities of life. Thus working, he is not affected by sinful reactions. So Prabhupada said, this is required in human life. It is not forbidden that you starve. No, that is not stated in the Shastra. Yavad artha vinirnayam. To keep your health and body, the body and the soul together, you must live very nicely so that you may not be diseased, because this human form of life is meant for making progress so that all the problems of life may be solved. It is required. Yuktahara viharasya. In another place, Yuktahara viharasya yoga bhavati siddhada. When one becomes a yogi, our real purpose of life is to become yogi. Yogi means to reestablish our connection or our lost connection with God. At the present moment, in our material condition, we have forgotten our relationship, our eternal relationship with Krishna or God. Nitya siddhikad, Krishna bhakti sadhika bunai, shavanadi suddha chitta karaya udai. The Krishna bhakti, our love for Krishna, is there eternally, but on account of our contamination with this material world, we have forgotten our relationship. So, basically, in this purport, in this lecture that Prabhupada gives, it's an amazing lecture. We're going to go over it for a day or two. But the main point is simple living, high thinking. That's the main point. And that's a theme that he talks about a lot. This simple living. So when we live simply, or another way of saying is nirasi. Nirasi means that you're not attached to the result. You offer the result. The proof that you offer the result to Krishna means you're not attached. It's not like the Mayavadis. They reject. They don't believe in Krishna. They don't want to give anything to Krishna. They don't do anything. That's sinful. But when there's something that can be offered to Krishna and you don't do it, then that would be sinful. But if you can do it, that is Krishna consciousness. So, Prabhupada says, one has got the desire, but he should not desire unnecessarily. Everyone has got the right to eat. Even the animals, they have the right to eat. Everyone has got the right. Just like we see on the farm, the rabbits are trying to eat. The snails and the slugs are trying to eat. The rats are trying to eat. The birds are trying to eat. You know, we see it all around us. There's this competition for eating, right? And all these living entities want to eat. And there's bugs and there's moths and all kinds of butterflies. They're all trying to eat, right? And there's the weasel. We have a weasel also. It's like a thin, long little animal. It's a big meat eater. And there's raccoons. And there's possums. They're all there at the farm. And there's coyotes. And there's snakes. They're all there. And they're all trying to eat. And there's ants. And there's bugs. And all kinds of things. You see. And there's centipedes. If you look at all the different life forms at the farm, there's hundreds, maybe thousands of them. And there's the microbes. And also you have the weeds. They're also trying to eat, right? And they're also being eaten. So all this competition is there for food. But it doesn't say that we have to starve. So everyone has got the right to eat, even the animals. Everyone has got the right. But because we are desiring to enjoy more, therefore we do not give the chance to the animals to live properly. Rather, we are trying to eat the animals. Yeah, instead of working hard in the field to grow vegetables, they just let the cows go out, eat the grass, and then they kill the cow and eat it. They become so lazy and cruel. But yet the cow can give wonderful milk, and you can plow the field and grow grains. But no, let them just graze and then kill the cow and eat it. See? So that's how crazy and demoniac this culture has become. Therefore, we do not give the chance to the animals to live properly. Rather, we are trying to eat the animals. This is not required. This is called nirasi, not attached to the result. Why you should eat animals? That is uncivilized life. When there is no food, when they are aborigines, they may eat animals because they do not know how to grow food. But when the human society becomes civilized, it can grow so many nice foods, and a person can keep the cows instead of eating the cows. He can get milk, sufficient milk. We can make so many preparations from milk and grains, so we should not desire unnecessarily to enjoy more. So, if you live like this, then kurvan napnuti kilbusam. Kilbusam means resultant action of sinful life. So if we don't desire more than our necessities, then we are not implicated or involved in sinful activity. Kurvan api, even though one is engaged in working, while you are working knowingly or unknowingly, you have to commit something which is not pious, even sinful. But if you simply desire for living properly, then kurvan napnuti kilbusam. Our life should be without any sinful reaction. There will be no sinful reaction. Otherwise, we'll have to suffer. But people don't believe this. Although they are seeing so many abominable lives, so much suffering in this world, they don't believe it. Wherefrom they are coming. 8,400,000 species of life. There are so many lives living in very abominable conditions. Of course, the animal or the living creature does not know, but we are human beings. We should know why this life is abominable. It is Maya's illusion. Yeah. So that's why we're listening to Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita every day, to clear away this illusion that's been like drilled into our brain. You know, you get a drill, you know, and you screw something into the wood. Well, people have drilled this idea of sense gratification, and I am the proprietor, I am this body, I am American, I am Indian, I am this, I am that, right into our brain. And you know, you got to get the drill and put it on the reverse side and pull that, and then screw out the screw that was screwed in. Now you're screwing it out, right? Otherwise, we're lost. We're going to waste our whole life chasing after this phantasmagoria, this Hava Mahal, this palace in the sky. Well, there's no palace in the sky, but we think there is. And we're in a state of illusion. Everyone is running around, driving their cars, and whiz, 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 Prabhupada says. And where are they going? They're going to hell, because they have no knowledge of what is the purpose of life. They're ignoring it totally. So we should not let that happen to us. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We'll continue this subject some more. Are there any questions?
In the Bhagavatam, these particular verses, so by connecting only you can understand that the demigod worship is useless. Why is that? Why does Bhagavatam?
Well, in the absence of Krishna consciousness, it may be beneficial. But when there's Krishna consciousness, it is not necessary at all. It shouldn't waste your time doing it. But for people who are not Krishna conscious, it can be beneficial, because at least you're recognizing there's someone greater than you, a demigod. That's in the Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada says that. Let me see if I can find it. Everything is in the Bhagavad Gita. Third chapter, 12th verse. I've read this before. It says, third chapter, 12th verse, for one who cannot understand what the personality of Godhead is, sacrifice to the demigods is recommended. Okay. But if you can understand, then you know it's not necessary. Yeah. So what was your question?
No, the question is like, why does Bhagavatam, which is all about the worship of the Lord, pure devotional service, why does it mention these verses, which tends to again bring somewhat of material desires?
Well, the whole Bhagavatam is trying to teach us, wean us away from sense gratification and self-interested pujas, right? It's basically in Bhagavad Gita also, it's Krishna's message. See, in the 18th chapter, verse number 6, what does Krishna say? He says, all these activities, meaning all the pujas for the demigods, should be performed without attachment or any expectation of result. They should be performed as a matter of duty, O son of Pritha. That is my final opinion. Although all sacrifices are purifying, one should not expect any result by such performances. In other words, all sacrifices that are meant for material advancement in life should be given up. So those are the karma kanda sacrifices. to the demigods, but sacrifices that purify one's existence and elevate one to the spiritual plane should not be stopped. Everything that leads to Krishna consciousness must be encouraged. In the Srimad Bhagvatam also it is said that any activity which leads to devotional service to the Lord should be accepted. That is the highest criterion of religion. A devotee of the Lord should accept any kind of work, sacrifice, or charity which will help him in the discharge of devotional service to the Lord. So there you are. So these yagyas and all this stuff that they do for the demigods is unnecessary. And that's the whole purpose of Govardhan Puja. Krishna stopped the worshipping Indra and all of the demigods and said, just worship me. So people who don't understand Krishna, it may be beneficial, but if you understand Krishna, it's not necessary at all. Of course, your family will argue with you, say, oh, no, you have to, our ancestors have been doing this, we've been doing this, everybody does it. If you're a Hindu, you're not a Hindu anymore, you got brainwashed with those Hare Krishnas. But no, you're simply understanding Krishna's own instructions in Bhagavad Gita. There it is, 18:6. Not only there, it's in the 17th chapter, 24th verse. Let's see what that says. 17:24. This threefold austerity performed with transcendental faith by men, not expecting material benefits, but engaged only for the sake of the Supreme, is called austerity in goodness. So, austerity in goodness, you're not expecting any result. Now, if someone pays for Satyanarayana Puja, and the priest tells them, don't expect any result, they'll say, well, I'll get another priest then. Because they're expecting result. That's why the priest says, say mama. So the person says, mama, this is for me. But if he says, no mama, it's okay, no priest. Haribol. All glories to Prabhupada ki jai.